You will die if you enter that car. The voice was shaking, loud, desperate. Jonathan froze. His right hand was already on the open door of his black Bentley. The engine was still running. The compound was quiet. The late morning sun bounced off the polished body of the car and made it shine like glass. He turned. What he saw didn't make sense. A young lady stood there, at the gate of his mansion. She looked like she had been dragged out of a gutter and dropped in front of him. Her dress was ash-colored and torn at the shoulder. There were mud stains on it like she had slept on the ground. Her hair was not packed. It was rough, cloudy, standing around her face. Her feet were dusty. Her eyes were wide and worried, and her right hand was up pointing straight at him. "Don't enter that car," she said again. "You will die if you enter that car." For 2 full seconds, nobody moved. Not the driver. Not the 2 security men at the gate. Not even Sandra. Sandra stood beside Jonathan, holding her gold handbag like a trophy. She looked perfect. Her wig was straight and black, touching her shoulders. Her makeup was smooth. Her Ankara gown was tight, expensive, and loud. She was already smiling before the girl ran in. Now she was still smiling, but it was the wrong kind of smile. It did not reach her eyes. Her eyes were sharp. Jonathan blinked. He looked from the strange girl to his wife, then back at the strange girl. "Who is this?" he thought. "Who let her in? How did she get past security? Why is she shaking like this?" "Excuse me?" Sandra said, with a small laugh. "What did you just say?" The girl did not look at Sandra. She did not look afraid. She looked like someone who had already decided to die here, if that's what it would take. Her voice came out low, but clear. "You will die if you enter that car," she said again. "Please, sir, don't go in." Jonathan frowned. Why? That was his first word. Not, "Who are you?" Not, "How did you enter my compound?" Just, why? Because something in his chest had already gone cold. Because the girl's voice did not sound like madness. Because she did not beg for money. Because she said will, not maybe. Will. Sandra scoffed. "Jonathan, get in the car. We're late." But Jonathan did not move. He faced the girl. "Why did you say that?" he asked. "And who are you to walk into my mansion and tell me what to do?" The girl swallowed. Her hand was still shaking as she pointed at him. "It's not about who I am," she said. "It's about your life." Sandra let out a short, hard laugh. "Oh, this is funny," she said. "This is actually funny." She took 1 step forward, lifted her nose like the air itself now smelled bad to her, and said, "Security. Where were you people when this thing walked in here? Are you all mad?" The 2 security men at the gate looked confused. They had seen the girl run in through the big black gate when one Danfo bus stopped in front of the house to drop a generator spare part. She had squeezed in fast like water and dashed straight inside before anyone could grab her. "Madam, she just... I don't care," Sandra snapped. But Jonathan raised his hand without looking at her. Quiet. He was still staring at the girl. Her skin was dark. Her face was thin. Her lips were dry. She looked young. Not older than 22. Her eyes were wet. But she was not crying. She was afraid, but not for herself. For him. And that part touched something inside him. "Talk," he said to her. His voice was now calm, low, serious. The way he talked in board meetings when there was a problem with millions involved. "You ran into my house and told me I will die. You have my attention. Now talk." The girl took a small breath. "My name is Sonia," she said softly. Sandra rolled her eyes. "Oh good, the homeless girl has a name." Jonathan heard her, but he did not answer her. Sonia continued. "I am not here to insult you," she said. "I am here to save you. Your wife wants to kill you." Sandra laughed, loud this time. She clapped once, slow, like she just watched a boring drama. "Jonathan, please," she said. "Please. Can we go? We don't have time for mental cases on uniform." But Jonathan's face had changed. The first part of Sonia's warning could be madness. The second part could be luck. But this part? This part was a knife. He turned fully now and faced his wife. Sandra's smile was still on her face, but her jaw was tighter now. "What did you just say?" he asked Sonia, without taking his eyes off Sandra. Sonia stepped forward. The guards moved, but Jonathan lifted one finger and they stopped. This woman, Sonia said, pointing at Sandra, your wife. She put something inside your car. Sandra's laugh stopped. She wants you to enter, Sonia said. She wants you to start the car and drive out so that the car will explode with you inside. Then she will take your company, everything you worked for, everything you built. Jonathan felt like the floor under him moved. His throat felt dry. The Bentley engine was still running, soft, gentle, loyal. This same car had carried him to sign million-naira deals. This same car had carried him to his mother's burial. He trusted this car. He trusted the man that serviced it. He trusted his driver. But now, for the first time, the sound of the engine scared him. Sonia, he said slowly, do you know what you are saying? Yes, Sonia said. If this is a lie, he said, I will arrest you. I will make sure you go to prison. You will sleep on the floor every night. You will not see the sun for a long time. Do you understand? I understand, she whispered. Sandra stepped forward fast. Before anyone could think, her hand came up, sharp, aiming for Sonia's face. Who do you think you are? Sandra shouted. You poor. Jonathan grabbed her wrist in the air. The shock on Sandra's face was real. Jonathan, she whispered, you're holding me too tight. He was. He let go, but his eyes never left hers. Why don't you want her to talk? He asked quietly. Sandra blinked. Excuse me? You said we're late, he said. You said we should go. You said she's mad. You said she doesn't know what she's saying, but you don't want her to finish. Sandra opened her mouth, closed it again. Her heartbeat was now in her neck. Sonia's voice came again, stronger this time. Ask her why she told you this morning that she's too tired to go to the office, she said to Jonathan. Ask her why she suddenly said she wants to rest at home today, even though you already agreed she will resume as company accountant and follow you to work. Akon, Jonathan turned his head slowly. He remembered. That was true. They had talked last night. Sandra had begged to be more involved in the company. She said she wanted to stand by him, support him, help him watch the money, protect his legacy. She had cried when she said those words. He felt touched. He told her yes. He told her she could start today. Then, just 30 minutes ago, while he was getting dressed, she had come into the room and rubbed his shoulders from behind and said in a soft voice, Baby, I don't feel strong today. I think I'll just rest at home. He kissed her forehead and said okay. He did not think anything of it. Until now. Now his stomach turned. Sandra tried to laugh. Jonathan, are you seriously? And ask her, Sonia said, cutting in. About Benson. The name hit the air like fire. Even the driver looked up. Jonathan's eye moved. Which Benson? Sonia swallowed. Your general manager. Jonathan stared at her. She continued, her voice steady now. She promised him promotion, Sonia said. She told him he will control everything when you are gone. The company, the money, the contracts, even the house. That's enough, Sandra snapped. But it was already too late. Something had already cracked. Sandra, Jonathan said very softly, what is she talking about? Sandra turned to him fast. Baby, listen to me. No, he said. His voice was not loud, but it was final. I have been quiet, he said. I have been patient. I did not shout at this girl. I did not touch her. I only asked her to explain. And you keep trying to stop her. Sandra felt heat rise in her face. This is nonsense, she said. Why do you know how insulting this is? For you to stand here and let a dirty girl from the street humiliate me. Me, after everything I have done for you? What have you done for me? Jonathan asked, and his voice cut like glass. Sandra blinked. For the first time since Sonia ran in, she had nothing to say. Sonia reached into her old, dirty handbag. The guards moved again. Jonathan lifted his hand again. Wait. Sonia pulled out a small phone. It was cracked. The screen was scratched white at one corner. It looked like something that had survived rain and dust and fists. She held it with both hands. I recorded them, she said quietly. Jonathan stared at her. You what? I recorded them, Sonia repeated. Your wife and the general manager, Benson. I heard them talking at the back of the uncompleted building down the road where I sleep. I always stay there at night. I don't have a home. I don't have anybody. I live there. Her voice shook on that last part, but she swallowed and kept going. She was on the phone first, Sonia said. I heard her telling someone, "Everything is ready. He will enter the car this morning. After that, we move." So I followed her. She went behind, where I spread my wrapper to sleep. She did not even look down. She did not even see me. She started talking to Benson. Jonathan could hear his own heartbeat now. "I did not understand at first," Sonia said. "But then I heard her say, 'Don't worry. Once it happens, you'll take over. I'll make sure the board listens to you. I'll say I'm the widow. I'll say I'm still in shock. They'll feel sorry. They'll sign anything." Sandra's lips parted, and Benson was laughing. Sonia whispered. He said, "My wife. My CEO." "My what?" Jonathan said, and his voice broke. Sandra turned to him fast. "Jonathan, please, please. This is all—" But Sonia was not done. "And then," Sonia said, tears in her eyes now, she said, "Just make sure you finish what I asked you to do with the car. I don't want any mistake. I don't want him to survive." The world felt slow. Nobody spoke. "Play it," Jonathan said. Sandra spun. "Are you insane? You're letting this girl—" Jonathan snapped. "Sandra," he said without looking at her, "if you touch that girl or that phone, I will have you dragged on this floor in your nightgown. Do you understand me?" Sandra stared at him like he just slapped her. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Sonia's hands were shaking so much she could hardly unlock the phone. It took her 3 tries. She finally found the audio file and pressed play. The sound was not very clear. Wind, distant traffic, a kiki going by. But the voices were there. A woman's voice, Sandra's voice, and a man's voice. "Benson, I told you I'm not coming with him today," Sandra's voice said on the recording. "Do what you need to do. He'll drive out alone. Once it happens, call me first." Then Benson's voice, low and excited. "You sure the thing is tight? You sure it will blow the way I set it?" Sandra's voice again, soft and cold. "I don't want him to suffer. Just make it clean." Jonathan's knees went weak. The phone kept playing. Benson laughed in the recording. "Baby," he said, "by tomorrow morning, you'll be the richest widow in Lagos." Jonathan closed his eyes. The sound of his own breathing was loud in his ears. Widow. He opened his eyes and looked at Sandra. She was already crying now, but it was not clean crying. It was shaking, panicking, losing control, crying. Her makeup was still perfect, but her eyes were wild. "It was the devil," she said fast, dropping to her knees. Her handbag slipped from her hand and fell to the floor. "Jonathan, please, please, it's not me. I don't know what came over me. I don't know what I was thinking. Baby, I swear, I love you." Jonathan took one step back, like her words were fire. Love? Something inside him tore. He reached into his pocket, with hands that were no longer steady, and pulled out his phone. He called immediately. "Officer Musa," he said when the line picked. His voice was breaking, but still controlled. "I need a unit in my house, now. Attempted murder." "Yes. My wife." Sandra gasped, like someone stabbed her. "Jonathan!" He ended the call. He did not look at her. He was looking at Sonia. This girl with dirty feet and a shaking hand and a cracked phone had just pulled him out of his own grave. He knew it. He could feel it in his body. If she had come 5 minutes later, he would have been in that car already, on the road, in traffic, and he would not be standing here. His throat felt tight. He swallowed. "What is your name again?" he asked quietly. Sonia blinked. "Sonia." Jonathan nodded. "Sonia," he said, and his voice was now soft. "Thank you for saving my life." Tears filled Sonia's eyes. "I didn't do it for money," she whispered fast. "Please, I didn't come here to beg. I heard what she said, and I could not keep quiet and watch you die." "I know," Jonathan said, and he meant it. He could see it in her face. Her fear was not for herself, it was for him. "How did you even get that recording?" he asked. Sonia wiped her face with the back of her hand. "Your wife was standing behind the uncompleted building down the road," she said. "That's where I sleep. I was already awake because people sometimes chase us from there, and I have to be ready to run." I heard her voice, and I heard Benson's name. And I know Benson because he always passes there in his big car, and he never looks at anybody. So I took my phone and I pressed record. And then I followed her this morning. I followed her here. When the gate opened, I ran in. Jonathan felt his eyes burn. He was a billionaire. People bowed when he walked in. People opened doors for him. People smiled for him, even when they hated him. But this girl nobody would look at twice on the road, had done more for him than most of the people in his office. He opened his mouth to speak, and that was when they heard sirens coming down the street. The police. Sandra started screaming. "Jonathan, please, baby, please, don't do this to me. I'm your wife, I'm your wife." But for the first time since he married her, her voice did not move him. It only made him tired. As the black police van rolled in through the gate and officers began to step down, armed and alert, something cold settled in the compound. Everything had changed. Everything. And nothing would go back to normal again, not after this. Not after, "You will die if you enter that car." The police van screeched to a halt inside the mansion's compound. The sound of boots hitting the tiled floor filled the air as officers surrounded the area. Two went straight to the Bentley, one crouched to inspect under the vehicle. Within seconds, his face changed. "Sir," the officer said, standing and turning to Jonathan, "there's a device fixed beneath the driver's seat. Looks like a detonator." Sandra gasped and fell back to her knees. Her handbag lay open on the floor, gold jewelry spilling out. Her once perfect smile was gone, replaced by panic. "No, that's not mine. I don't know what they're saying," she screamed. Jonathan stood still. He felt numb, like the world around him had gone silent. He didn't blink. He didn't move. All he could see was Sonia, the girl who had just saved him, standing barefoot, her dress torn, hands trembling, tears streaking down her dirty face. He whispered, "So it's true." Sandra reached out, crawling toward him. "Jonathan, I swear, I didn't mean for it to go this far." "I was angry," Benson said. Jonathan stepped back. "Don't say his name," he said coldly. But Sandra kept crying, her voice cracking. "He said he could help us. He said the company will be ours." "Ours?" Jonathan repeated. His voice rose. "You wanted to kill me, Sandra. Me, your husband. The same man who gave you everything, the house, the cars, the life you flaunted." She dropped her head to the floor, sobbing loudly. "It was the devil, Jonathan. I swear it was the devil." Sonia stood quietly, watching the chaos she had unleashed. Her heart was beating fast. Part of her felt pity for Sandra, but most of her felt fear. What if they turned on her now? What if Sandra lied and said she was part of it? But Jonathan looked at her again, and his gaze softened. "Officer," he said, voice steady now, "arrest her." Two police officers stepped forward and pulled Sandra up roughly. She screamed and struggled. "You can't do this to me. I'm your wife. Jonathan, please, please don't let them take me." Jonathan turned away. "You stopped being my wife," he said quietly, "the moment you planned my death." As the police led her out, Sandra's screams echoed across the compound. Her expensive gown dragged against the tiles, leaving streaks of dust and tears. Sonia stood frozen, her hands clasped together, watching as the gate closed behind them. The moment the sirens faded, silence fell again. The driver turned off the Bentley's engine, his face pale. The guards stood stiff, unsure of what to do. Finally, Jonathan spoke. "Sonia," he said softly, "come with me." She hesitated. "Sir, I didn't mean to cause trouble. You saved my life," he said. "The least I can do is offer you water and food." Inside the mansion, the air smelled of luxury. Polished floors, marble stairs, chandeliers, and gold frames. Sonia's eyes darted everywhere. She had never been in a place like this. Her reflection in the mirror scared her. She looked like a ghost among angels. Jonathan led her to the sitting room. He called one of the maids. "Bring food," he said, "and clean clothes." The maid looked surprised to see a homeless girl sitting on the billionaire's couch, but she obeyed quickly. Sonia sat quietly, her legs pressed together, eyes on the floor. The silence stretched until Jonathan finally sat opposite her. "How did you know to come?" he asked. "How did you know it would happen this morning?" Sonia looked up slowly. "Sir, I didn't plan it. I couldn't sleep last night." Around 5 a.m., I heard her voice again. She was making a call near the uncompleted building. She told the person to check the car before 9. I didn't know who she was talking to until she mentioned your name. "My name?" Jonathan frowned. "Yes, sir," Sonia said. She said, "Once Jonathan enters that car, everything ends." That's when I knew I couldn't stay quiet. Jonathan rubbed his forehead, the weight of betrayal pressing on him. You could have walked away, he said. You could have ignored it. Sonia's lips trembled. I lost my parents when I was 10, she said. A rich man promised to take care of me. He took my father's land and threw me out. Since then, I've seen too many people pretend to love others while planning their fall. I couldn't let that happen again. Her words hit him deep. He leaned back slowly, staring at her, this young woman with nothing, who risked her life to protect him. The maid returned with a tray, rice, stew, fried fish, and chilled water. Sonia's hands shook as she took the plate. Eat, Jonathan said. She nodded and began to eat quietly, tears slipping down her cheeks. It was the first proper meal she'd had in days. As she ate, Jonathan stood and walked to the large window. He looked outside. The police were still around, checking the Bentley. One of them waved at him, giving a thumbs up. The bomb squad had safely removed the device. He exhaled deeply. When he turned back, Sonia had stopped eating. She was staring at the family portraits on the wall. Jonathan, Sandra, and a life that now looked like a lie frozen in gold frames. He said quietly, "That woman, she used to make me believe I was the luckiest man alive." Sonia looked up. "Sir, I'm sorry." He smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Don't be. Maybe this was the only way for me to see the truth." There was a long pause before he asked, "Where do you sleep at night?" Sonia hesitated. "Behind the uncompleted building near Oloyu Street. I share space with 2 others. We take turns staying awake so no one steals our things." Jonathan nodded slowly, his heart heavy. "You'll never sleep there again." She looked confused. "Sir, I owe you my life," he said. "From now on, you'll stay here until I find a better place for you. You'll have food, clothes, and safety." Her mouth fell open. "You mean, here? In your house?" "Yes," he said firmly. "You deserve better." Tears filled her eyes again. She bent her head. "Thank you, sir." Jonathan smiled faintly. "No, Sonia, thank you." Just then, his phone rang. It was Officer Musa. "Sir," the officer said, "we've interrogated your wife at the station. She confessed everything. The explosive was built by the general manager, Benson. We're tracking him now." Jonathan's hand tightened around the phone. "Find him," he said coldly. "Don't let him escape." When he ended the call, his eyes burned with anger and grief. He looked at Sonia again, this girl who had stepped into his world like an angel through the dust. He said softly, "You just changed everything, Sonia." And as the sun set outside the mansion, its orange light spilling across the floor, one truth became clear. This was only the beginning. The night sky over Lagos glowed faintly with red clouds and faraway horns. At the Anderson mansion, silence had replaced the chaos. The Bentley sat in the corner of the compound, now cold and still. A crime scene turned into evidence. Inside, Jonathan couldn't sleep. He sat in his study, the dim lamp casting long shadows across the floor. His hands were clasped tightly together as he stared at the photo frame on his desk, the one that showed him and Sandra on their wedding day, both smiling like nothing could ever go wrong. He finally picked it up, stared for a long second, then turned it face down. "Sir?" Sonia's gentle voice came from the door. Jonathan turned. She stood there wearing one of the housemaid's borrowed gowns, her hair neatly brushed and her face freshly washed. The transformation was small, but clear. The dirt and fear were gone, replaced by calm humility. "I didn't mean to disturb you," she said softly. "I just wanted to thank you again for letting me stay here." Jonathan smiled faintly. "You don't have to thank me, Sonia. You saved my life. I should be thanking you every day." She lowered her gaze shyly. "Still, sir, no one's ever treated me kindly in a long time." Before Jonathan could respond, his phone buzzed. It was Officer Musa again. He answered quickly. "Officer, please tell me you found him." "Yes, sir," Musa replied. "We tracked Benson to a hotel in Ikeja. He was trying to book a flight to Ghana using a fake name. We have him in custody." Jonathan exhaled deeply, relief mixing with anger. "Good work. I'll be at the station first thing in the morning." When he dropped the phone, Sonia was watching him carefully. "Is it about the man she was planning with?" "Yes," Jonathan said. "Benson. My most trusted employee. He's been with me for 10 years. I treated him like family." Sonia frowned. "And he betrayed you too?" Jonathan nodded slowly. "It seems betrayal is the only thing I've been surrounded with lately." He stood up, walked to the window, and looked outside at the quiet night. The moonlight reflected off the Bentley. His own reflection stared back at him, older, heavier, sadder. Then, softly, he said, "You know, Sonia, I built everything I have from nothing. I was poor once, maybe even poorer than you. I sold fruits on the roadside before I got my first job as a driver. Sandra met me when I was still struggling. I thought she believed in me. I thought she loved me for who I was, not what I had." Sonia listened quietly. Her eyes glistened under the soft light. "Maybe she did once," she said carefully. "But greed changes people. Sometimes love can die when money becomes louder." Her words sank deep into his heart. "Get some rest," he finally said with a tired smile. "Tomorrow will be a long day." By 8 a.m. the next morning, the Lagos State Criminal Investigation Department was buzzing with noise. Officers moved back and forth, carrying files. A few journalists had gathered outside the gate, already hearing rumors that a billionaire's wife was behind bars for attempted murder. Jonathan arrived in his dark suit, expression calm but cold. Sonia followed behind, wearing a simple blue gown he had given her. She looked completely different from the girl who had burst into his compound just a day before. Inside the interrogation room, Benson sat handcuffed to a steel chair. His once confident face was swollen and his shirt wrinkled. The moment Jonathan entered, Benson's eyes darted away. "So it's true," Jonathan said quietly. "You really wanted me dead." Benson didn't answer. He kept his head down. Officer Musa stepped forward, holding a file. "We found the communication records between him and your wife. Multiple voice messages, payments made from her personal account to his in cash deposits. There's also CCTV footage showing him near your car at dawn, the same day the device was planted." Jonathan's jaw tightened. "Why, Benson? You had everything. Salary, bonuses, respect. What else did you want?" Finally, Benson lifted his head, his voice trembling. "She promised me power, sir. She said once you were gone, she'd make me CEO. I didn't mean for it to go this far. She said the explosive was just to scare you, not to kill." Sonia gasped softly, her hand covering her mouth. Jonathan took a step closer. "You fool. You really thought the woman who could betray her husband wouldn't betray you too?" Benson's lips trembled. "I'm sorry, sir. Please, I don't want to go to prison." And quote, Officer Musa cut in firmly. "You should have thought about that before breaking the law. You're both facing 25 years, possibly more." Jonathan stared at him for a moment, then turned to leave. But before walking out, he said one last thing. "You tried to destroy my life, Benson, but today you destroyed yours." Back in the car, Sonia sat quietly beside him. Her mind was spinning with everything she had seen, betrayal, greed, and now justice. Jonathan broke the silence. "You know what hurts the most," he said quietly. "It's not losing the company or my wife. It's realizing that I could have died thinking she still loved me." Sonia looked at him sadly. "You didn't die, sir. Maybe because you were meant to see the truth first. Sometimes God uses unexpected people to open our eyes." Jonathan glanced at her. "You really believe that?" She nodded. "Yes. I believe he sent me there that morning for a reason." For the first time in a long while, Jonathan smiled genuinely. "Maybe you're right." When they arrived back at the mansion, the staff were waiting. News had spread fast. The workers whispered as Sonia stepped out beside him. Many of them recognized her, the same girl who had rushed in screaming, "You will die if you enter that car." Now, she walked beside the billionaire she had saved, no longer a stranger but part of his story. As they entered the house, Jonathan turned to her. "Sonia, I want to change your life. From today, you're no longer homeless. I'll take care of your education, your future, everything." Sonia froze, tears welling in her eyes. "Sir, that's too much. I can't." "You can," he said gently. "You deserve it." The moment felt heavy, not with fear this time, but with hope. Outside, the Bentley sat silent under the bright Lagos sun, once a symbol of wealth, now a reminder of survival. But inside the mansion, something new was beginning, the bond between a billionaire who lost everything and a homeless girl who saved it all. And neither of them knew that what waited ahead would test their hearts even more. The courthouse was filled that morning. Sunlight poured through the tall glass windows, bouncing off the white walls and the polished floor. Reporters whispered in corners. Police officers lined the aisle. Cameras clicked as people turned to stare at the man walking in. Jonathan Anderson, the billionaire who almost lost his life to his wife's betrayal. Beside him walked Sonia, now dressed in a beautiful royal blue gown Jonathan had bought her. Her once rough hair was neatly packed in a bun. Her eyes were calm but alert. She looked nothing like the homeless girl who had shouted warnings a few days earlier. She looked confident, even graceful, though she clutched her small purse tightly to steady her nerves. As they entered, murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Some whispered, "That's the girl who saved him." Others whispered, "That's the wife who tried to kill him." Moments later, Sandra was brought in. She wore a dull brown prison uniform, her wrists in cuffs. Her face was pale, her once perfect makeup long gone. Her eyes darted nervously, and when they met Jonathan's, she froze, shame flooding her face. She tried to smile, but it was weak, broken, trembling. "Court rise," the bailiff called. Everyone stood as Justice Bamidele Ajayi entered, his black robe flowing behind him. He looked stern and ready to end a case that had shocked the entire state. Sandra stood between two officers, hands shaking. Benson, the general manager, was brought in moments later, head bowed, eyes empty. The two no longer even looked at each other. The partnership that once plotted evil had dissolved into silence and regret. Justice Ajayi cleared his throat. "This court has heard from both parties," he began. "The evidence brought before me is overwhelming." He looked directly at Sandra. "Mrs. Sandra Anderson, you were trusted as a wife, a partner, and a mother figure in your husband's household. Instead, you chose deceit. You conspired with your husband's employee to take his life for money, power, and greed." Sandra began to cry softly. "My lord, please, I didn't mean to—" "Silence." The judge's voice thundered through the courtroom. "You had every chance to confess, but instead you lied and deceived. It took a stranger, a young girl with nothing but courage to stop your evil plan. The law must take its course." The room fell silent. Justice Ajayi turned to Benson. "And you, Mr. Benson, a man trusted with power and privilege, you joined this woman to plot murder. You will pay the price for your crime." He took a deep breath, then read the verdict. "Mrs. Sandra Anderson and Mr. Benson are hereby sentenced to 25 years imprisonment each for conspiracy, attempted murder, and breach of marital trust. This court is adjourned." The sound of the gavel hitting the desk echoed like thunder. Sandra's legs gave way. She collapsed, weeping uncontrollably. "Jonathan, please, don't let them take me, I beg you." The officers lifted her up roughly. She struggled, screaming, "I didn't mean it. It was the devil. Please forgive me." Jonathan stood still. His eyes were wet, but he didn't move. Every scream from Sandra tore something inside him, yet he knew it was justice. As they dragged Sandra and Benson away, Sonia looked up at him. She whispered, "Are you okay, sir?" Jonathan nodded slowly, though his lips trembled. "I'm fine," he said softly. Justice had to be done. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed as microphones pointed toward Jonathan. "Sir, how do you feel about the verdict?" one journalist asked. Jonathan glanced at Sonia beside him, then faced the cameras. "I feel grateful," he said. "Grateful to God for exposing the truth. Grateful for the brave young woman who risked her life to save mine. If she hadn't spoken up, I wouldn't be standing here." Sonia lowered her gaze shyly as people began to clap. "Sir, what happens to her now?" another journalist asked. Jonathan smiled faintly. "She's part of my family now. She deserves a better life, and I intend to give her one." The reporters murmured excitedly as they stepped into the waiting car. That evening, back at the mansion, everything felt different. The silence was peaceful now, not tense like before. The servants greeted Sonia warmly when she passed. Some even whispered, "God used her." "It's not flow." In the living room, Jonathan sat with a cup of tea, lost in thought. Sonia joined him quietly. "You didn't touch your food," she said softly. He smiled weakly. "I'm still trying to believe everything that happened." Sonia nodded. "Sometimes the truth feels heavier than lies." He chuckled lightly at that. "You're wiser than your age, Sonia." She smiled shyly. "Maybe pain teaches wisdom." For a while, they sat in silence. The ticking of the clock filled the room. Then Jonathan said, "I spoke to my lawyer. I want to sponsor your education. You mentioned you once wanted to be an accountant, right?" Her eyes widened. "Yes, sir. But..." That was before everything fell apart. Well, he said gently, it's time to rebuild. You'll go back to school. You'll have tutors, books, everything you need. You'll never live on the streets again. Tears filled her eyes instantly. Sir, I don't even know what to say. He leaned forward, smiling. Say you'll make me proud. Sonia laughed through her tears. I will. I promise. At that moment, the heavy pain that had clouded the mansion began to lift. Weeks turned into months. Sandra's trial became old news. Sonia began school, studying accountancy like she'd always dreamed. Jonathan visited her often, encouraging her. Each time, she would smile and say, I'll never forget what you did for me. But he always replied the same way. No, Sonia, I'll never forget what you did for me. Inside prison, however, Sandra's life was collapsing. She struggled to adapt the hard bed, the cold food, the endless shame. People whispered about her as the billionaire's wife who threw everything away. Benson kept to himself, broken and quiet. Some nights, Sandra cried until dawn. If only I could turn back time, she would whisper. One evening, a nurse at the prison clinic rushed to call the warden. Sandra had collapsed in her cell, clutching her stomach. She was rushed to the hospital immediately. When Jonathan heard, he was silent for a long time. Then he said softly, Prepare the car. I want to see her. Sonia was shocked. You want to see her? After everything? He looked at her calmly. Yes. Forgiveness doesn't erase justice, but it can heal the soul. Sonia nodded slowly, understanding. That night, under the pale hospital lights, Jonathan walked into the small room where Sandra lay weak and pale. She opened her eyes slowly and gasped when she saw him. Jonathan, she whispered. You came? He stood beside her bed, his face full of sorrow. I did. Tears filled her eyes. I'm sorry. I lost everything. Please forgive me. Jonathan reached out and held her hand. I forgave you a long time ago, Sandra. But now you must forgive yourself. She broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. For the first time, her tears were real, and as the hospital lights flickered softly, a strange peace filled the room, the kind that comes only when truth, pain, and forgiveness finally meet. But destiny was not done with them yet. Something unexpected was still coming. The morning sun rose softly over Lagos, spreading gold over the hospital's white walls. Nurses moved quietly through the corridors, the smell of disinfectant heavy in the air. Inside one small private room, Sandra lay asleep, her face calm for the first time in years. Jonathan sat in a chair beside her, silent and thoughtful. The events of the past year had changed everything. The man who once believed success was his greatest achievement now knew that peace was more valuable than any company or car. He watched Sandra breathe. Despite everything, seeing her fragile like this stirred old memories, laughter, holidays, the early days when love still lived between them. It hurt to remember, but it also reminded him of how far he'd come. A gentle knock sounded on the door. Sonia peeked in, dressed neatly in her university outfit, a light blue shirt tucked into black trousers, her ID card hanging proudly around her neck. Her eyes lit up when she saw him. "Good morning, sir," she said softly. Jonathan smiled faintly. "Good morning, Sonia. You're early." "I just came from class," she said, walking closer. "I heard she's getting better." He nodded. "Yes, she'll be discharged soon. The doctors say she's lucky to be alive." Sonia looked at Sandra and sighed. "Do you ever wish things had gone differently?" Jonathan leaned back in his chair. "Every day," he said honestly. "But maybe it all had to happen this way. Sometimes God lets pain break us so we can rebuild right." Sonia nodded slowly. "Maybe he used your pain to change more than one life." He smiled at her words. They both turned when they heard Sandra stir. Her eyes fluttered open weakly, then focused on them. When she saw Sonia, shame filled her gaze. You're the girl who saved him," Sandra whispered. Sonia stood still. "Yes, ma'am." Sandra's lips trembled. "You could have stayed quiet, and I would have destroyed him." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "You saved his life. And maybe you saved my soul too." Sonia blinked, moved by her words. "Everyone deserves a second chance," she said softly. Sandra turned her eyes to Jonathan. "I don't deserve one, but thank you for coming back for me." Jonathan nodded gently. "I didn't come to punish you, Sandra. I came to forgive you. You've paid your price. Now use what's left of your life to make peace with God and yourself." Sandra wept quietly, nodding. "I will." 2 weeks later, the hospital released Sandra. The once proud billionaire's wife left the gates of the clinic dressed in a simple plain dress, her hair tied back. She looked like a shadow of the woman who once owned mansions and diamonds, but her eyes carried something new: humility. To her surprise, Jonathan and Sonia were waiting for her outside. A black SUV was parked near the gate. "Where will you go?" Jonathan asked gently. Sandra hesitated. "I have nowhere, Jonathan. No family, no friends. I burned every bridge." He handed her an envelope. She opened it with trembling hands. Inside were documents and a check. 10 million naira, he said simply. "Start a small business. Find your path again." Her eyes widened. "You're giving me this? After everything I did?" "Yes," he said, "because mercy is stronger than revenge. You don't owe me anything anymore. Just live differently." She fell to her knees, tears streaming. "Thank you, Jonathan. I don't deserve this." He reached down and helped her up. "No one deserves grace. That's why it's called grace." Sonia stood quietly beside them, watching the scene unfold. The woman who had once plotted her husband's death was now being lifted by the same man she had betrayed. It was redemption in its purest form. Months passed. Life slowly returned to normal, though nothing felt the same. Sonia graduated from university with honors, earning her degree in accounting. The day of her graduation, Jonathan sat proudly in the front row, his eyes shining with pride as Sonia walked the stage. When the announcer called her name, Sonia Okafor, first-class honors, accounting, the audience clapped loudly. Cameras flashed. Jonathan stood and clapped harder than anyone else. After the ceremony, they stood outside under a large mango tree. Sonia smiled as Jonathan handed her a small box. Inside was a sleek pen engraved with gold letters. "To the girl who saved my life." Sonia gasped softly. "Sir, this is beautiful." Jonathan smiled. "You've earned it. You're not that homeless girl anymore, Sonia. You're a woman with a future." Tears welled in her eyes. "You gave me that future." "No," he said. "God gave it. I just followed his plan." 2 years later, Sonia officially joined Anderson Holdings as the new account officer, the same position once held by Sandra. The staff welcomed her warmly. She was young, humble, and sharp-minded. Jonathan watched her from his office window with pride. Sometimes he would see her walking through the company hallways, confident, respected, and full of purpose. It reminded him how one moment of courage could rewrite destiny. Meanwhile, Sandra had rebuilt her life quietly in Abeokuta. She started a small tailoring business using the money Jonathan gave her. Every Sunday, she attended church faithfully, speaking to young women about the dangers of greed and betrayal. People who once mocked her now called her Mama Grace because she always said, "It was grace that saved me." One Sunday morning, 3 years after everything, Sonia visited her. She found Sandra in her small shop, smiling warmly at a young apprentice. When Sandra saw her, she froze, then smiled. "Sonia," she said, voice trembling. "You came." Sonia hugged her tightly. "I came to see how you're doing." Sandra laughed softly. "I'm alive. That's enough." They talked for hours. When Sonia stood to leave, Sandra said, "Thank you again for saving him, and for forgiving me." Sonia smiled. We all needed saving, just in different ways. Later that evening, Sonia returned to the mansion. The golden sunset bathed the compound in warmth. Jonathan sat in the garden, reading a newspaper. He looked up as she walked in. "How's she?" he asked. "Better," Sonia said with a smile. "She's finally at peace." He nodded. "That's good. Maybe that's what this whole journey was about, peace." Sonia sat beside him. "Do you ever wish you could change what happened?" Jonathan looked at the sky, then at her. "No," he said softly. "If that day hadn't happened, I would have died thinking my world was perfect. I would never have met you." Their eyes met, warm, grateful, unspoken understanding passing between them. The sound of the evening birds filled the air. The garden lights flickered on, wrapping them in soft gold. Jonathan smiled gently. "You will always be my miracle, Sonia, the voice that saved my life." Sonia's eyes glistened as she whispered, "And you'll always be the man who gave mine meaning." The wind rustled through the trees. Somewhere beyond the mansion gates, life carried on, buses honking, children laughing, the city breathing. But inside that garden, under the fading light, forgiveness, kindness, and second chances had written a new story. One born not out of wealth or fame, but out of grace. What is your view about this story? If you were in Jonathan's shoes, would you have forgiven Sandra despite what she did? Where are you watching from? If you enjoyed this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.